everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're actually going to go ahead and talk about the latest blog post from the Ashes of Creation site called Know Your Nodes, the Basics. Now, this was actually a pretty interesting post, and I wanted to go ahead and just make a quick video kind of going over what my thoughts are on this particular blog post. So far, so good. The Intrepid company seems to be keeping up their word for, releasing a steady stream of content. And by the time this video airs, or pretty soon, you should also see some more node information go on. But this is the basics, and let's just cover it really quick. Now, just to start off, the good thing that I like about this series, and so far from what we've seen, is we did get a little bit of new information that we had not known previously about nodes. But what I think that the article did really well was sum up a lot of things about nodes that had been talked about, that if you were following Ashes of Creation fervorously or, vigorously, you would have known this information. So if you've been in Discord, you've been, catching up with some of the live streams, you would have known it. But if not, then you probably would not have known it, as you would have had to piece a lot of this stuff together. So what the article really did well is lay out kind of in sequential order what nodes are, kind of present some really cool screenshots and pictures of the nodes and kind of how they function. So it covered, what are they, how do they work, the different node types, and vassal nodes, content, zones of influence, and describing nodes overall in general. So overall, very, very helpful in explaining what nodes were and the information. So let's just go ahead and start with the very first portion, which is what are nodes. Now, as they explain, nodes are, essentially the heart of the world and how it's actually, set up. The new bit of information that we got here was the fact that there will be 103 node locations at launch, each with its own impact and narrative and development of the world. We learned that, and it had been kind of thrown around, we learned that each node is kind of set as far as what type of node it actually is. We got more information there on, the specific, it was specifically laid out in the stages, from wilderness, it goes on to expedition, camp, village, town, city, and then finally metropolis, and the different, stages basically that goes along with it. Now, node types was a very interesting section in that we started to learn a little bit more about the other node types. So we've got the 4 node types. You've got the economic, military, scientific, and divine, as well as the buildings, the NPCs, and the benefits that each of them actually brings to the table. The economic one brings merchants. The NPCs that come in are merchant base, whereas military has guards, scientific scholars, and divine priests. They also touched that the nodes are predetermined and the same across all of the servers, which is actually pretty interesting, meaning that based on how nodes kind of grow themselves, will structure and how the server is actually set up. So for example, you may have one node in the southwest corner of the map on server A that its military node has grown to epic proportions as Metropolis and has essentially enveloped all the other ones, whereas in the same region on another server, the scientific node may have advanced there. So while the world will be the same, those cities and the demographics of the areas will be completely different, which actually goes to explaining a lot of the differences between the node types, which is absolutely fantastic. I like that idea. I like how it's actually populated like that. And again, they touched on that node type being static, and does not change based on the node's level or destruction, for example. So that is, it is a really useful piece of information in understanding how the node system works. Now, they also touched more here on the vassal nodes. So specifically, as nodes reach stage 3 and higher, the fact that they start to enslave nearby nodes and essentially become part of those larger nodes, and then also limit how high those other nodes can grow, is an interesting feature as well too. They also state that it's that these vassal nodes are subject to the parent nodes, government alliances, wars, and taxes and trade, and also receive aid for them is interesting. It's very interesting as well because it also, I think, it organically brings in some conflict. As if you and another group are busy leveling an area and you all of a sudden become vassals of a particular node, you might be inclined to go ahead and run for office in that larger node, or however it may be, they determine who leads. Or you may not like this new regime or something or another, so you may go find pack up and go to another node across somewhere else, right? So I think there's a lot of potential conflict and just natural elements where you can interact with other players with this. Now, the other area that they touched on was the content, which is also key with nodes. All quests, dungeons, raids, events, NPC spawns, resources, narratives are all determined by the node stage and the influence race. So I found that very interesting. Now, they didn't really touch on what happens with, the monsters and the NPCs specifically, but we know from differences is that as a node grows, more powerful creatures tend to inhabit. So I'm very curious as to how this is going to work with leveling and areas that you level. Will you be naturally inclined to go somewhere where the node isn't as advanced because you need to find NPCs that are around your level to level, things of that nature. I'm very curious of how this specifically is going to work, and hopefully within the next node series that they go into, they'll dive into it a little bit deeper. The zone of influence, ZOI of what they're calling, is very it kind of goes along with the whole node concept as well. I mean, that's what determines what goes where, how nodes will overlap with one another. And I think the one of the last sentences that they have is very significant. Ashes of Creation will be a living, breathing, reactive world. Your actions will shape the zones of influence, leveling nodes to form massive cities and create the story of the world that everyone experiences. And so far from the base, it does seem that is the case, and it does seem that that is a possibility from there. I'm very curious. I thought this was a very good introduction article, just to get everyone caught up to speed, but I am really curious to see the next Know Your Nodes article, where they're going to dive deeper into how to advance, build, and destroy a node. That will also be released with a video diary that'll be dropping pretty soon, actually. So I'll be covering that as soon as it comes up. I'm relatively caught up with content, so I'll be usually releasing these videos as they drop and as I get them out. All right, so that's pretty much it, guys. I love this series. I have liked this article. I'm curious what your guys' thought are of it. Do you have a different take on it? That's pretty much it. All right, thank you guys. Take care of yourselves. Alpha Soul out.